My wife cheated with her boss and my daughters helped cover it up, so I cut them all off, changed my will, and what happened next left them in shock. For almost 30 years, I thought I had the kind of life most people dream about. I married my wife Jane when we were young. She was 20 and I was 22. We were broke as hell back then, but we were happy. We built a life together from scratch and raised 2 daughters, Alice and Maddie. They were everything to me, my pride and joy. Alice, my oldest, is 26. She's always been the overachiever, valedictorian in high school, graduated top of her class in college, and now she's getting married this fall to her longtime boyfriend. Maddie, my youngest, is 24. She's always been the more carefree one. She's sweet, always quick to smile, and she's been really close to me since she was little. I'd always thought I had a great relationship with both of them. Jane and I had a good marriage, or at least that's what I thought. Sure, we had our ups and downs like every couple, financial struggles when the kids were young, arguments here and there, health scares. But through it all, we stuck together. I thought we were a team. I really believed we'd grow old together, that we'd be that old couple sitting on the porch, laughing about the crazy days when we were young. I loved her with everything I had. Last week, everything came crashing down. It was just a regular weekday. Jane told me she was going out for dinner with Alice and Maddie. They do this pretty regularly, every couple of weeks. They call it a girls' dinner. It's their time to catch up, laugh, and share things they don't want to talk about with me. I never minded. In fact, I loved that they were close. It made me proud as a husband and father, like I'd done something right in raising a family that loved each other so much. That night, Jane was getting ready upstairs. I was in the kitchen, sipping coffee and scrolling through the news on my phone. I remember it so clearly. Her phone buzzed on the counter. It wasn't unusual. She gets messages from the girls all the time, especially when they're organizing plans. Without thinking, I picked it up. I'm not proud of what I did next. I didn't have any reason to be suspicious, but for some reason I opened the message. It was from an unsaved number. Can't wait to see you tonight. I froze. My first reaction was confusion. This couldn't be right. It had to be a mistake, or maybe it wasn't what it looked like. I stared at the message for what felt like forever, my mind racing. Finally, I tapped on the thread to see the rest of the conversation. What I found destroyed me. The messages weren't long, but they didn't have to be. They were enough to tell me exactly what was going on. The texts were from her boss. They were meeting for dinner, and it was obvious this wasn't a business dinner. The tone of the messages was flirty, affectionate. There were texts from earlier that week. "Auntie, I miss you. Once a week isn't enough." Jane had replied, "I may miss you too." My stomach turned. My heart started racing. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the phone. This was my wife, the woman I'd built my life with, the mother of my children. She was having an affair. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to march upstairs and confront her right then and there, but I couldn't. I was in shock, trying to process what I'd just seen. I needed more information. I needed to be absolutely sure. A few minutes later, Jane came downstairs. She was dressed up, looking beautiful as always. She smiled at me, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Don't wait up, okay?" Her voice was so casual, so warm, like everything was normal. I don't know how I kept it together, but I managed to say, "Have fun with the girls." As soon as she walked out the door, I grabbed her phone and turned on location sharing. I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never felt the need to spy on her or anyone else, but in that moment, I didn't care. I needed to know the truth. I sat there for a while, staring at my own phone, waiting for her location to update. When it finally did, my heart sank even further. She wasn't heading to the restaurant where she and the girls usually met. She was going somewhere else, a place we'd been to many times as a family. I texted Alice and Maddie, "What time are you meeting Mom for dinner?" Both of them responded almost immediately. Alice said, 7 o'clock, can't wait to see her. Maddie said something similar. They were lying. My own daughters were lying to me. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it, but at that moment, I knew Jane wasn't the only one betraying me. My daughters were part of it too. I waited a little longer, watching Jane's location. She arrived at the restaurant. I grabbed my car keys and drove there, my heart pounding the whole way. When I got there, I parked outside and looked through the window. It didn't take long to find her. She was sitting at a table near the back with her boss. They were holding hands, laughing, completely unaware that I was watching them. It felt like a knife in my chest. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of them. I don't even know why I did it. Maybe to prove to myself that it was real, that I wasn't imagining things. Then I drove away. As I sat in my car staring at the picture of my wife with another man, I felt a wave of emotions, anger, sadness, disbelief. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to face her, how to confront her, so I didn't, not yet. Instead, I opened our family group chat and sent the picture, just the picture. with a simple caption, "Well, glad you're enjoying girls' dinner." Then I turned off my phone and drove to my brother's house. I didn't want to deal with the fallout yet. I couldn't. I wasn't ready. That night, I lay awake in my brother's guest room, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how my life had fallen apart so quickly. I'd always thought of myself as a good husband, a good father, but now I wasn't so sure. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my family, felt like a lie. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. After I sent that photo in the family group chat and turned off my phone, I drove aimlessly for a while before finally pulling into my brother's driveway. It was late, but he let me in without asking too many questions. He could tell something was wrong, though. I guess it was written all over my face. I didn't tell him the full story then. I just said I needed a place to crash for the night. He offered me a beer, but I wasn't in the mood. I just wanted to be alone. I spent the night on his couch, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. My mind was racing, trying to process everything that had happened in the past few hours. I kept replaying the moment I saw them together in the restaurant, the way Jane smiled at her boss, the way they leaned in close to each other, holding hands like two teenagers in love. It made me sick. How long had this been going on? How had I been so blind? And then there was Alice and Maddie, the way they lied to me so casually like it was nothing. I raised them to be honest, to have integrity, yet here they were, helping their mother cover up an affair. It felt like a betrayal on a completely different level. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. It immediately lit up with notifications, texts, missed calls, voicemails. Jane had called me dozens of times. Alice and Maddie had texted me as well. I didn't have the strength to read everything at once, so I skimmed through. Jane's messages were what I expected. "Please call me, I can explain. It's not what you think. We need to talk." I didn't listen to her voicemails. I couldn't bring myself to hear her voice. I knew it'd just make me angrier. Maddie's messages hit differently. She sent me wall after wall of texts, apologizing profusely. "Tad, I'm so sorry. I never should have lied to you. I hate myself for what I did. Please don't hate me. Can we please talk? I'm so scared I've ruined everything." She even had her boyfriend text me, "Hey, this is Josh. Maddie's really upset and having a panic attack. She's scared you'll never forgive her. Please call her." I didn't reply to her either. I didn't know what to say. Alice, on the other hand, was a different story. Her text was short and cold. "Tad, I'm sorry you found out this way, but I think you're overreacting. Don't throw away a good marriage over one mistake." Overreacting? One mistake? My blood boiled. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a full-blown betrayal, not only by Jane but by Alice and Maddie too. They lied to me. They helped their mother cover up something that completely shattered our family. I couldn't help but think about all the times they must have lied to my face, every time I asked about their plans, and they told me they were going to dinner, knowing full well what Jane was really doing. Every time they smiled at me, acting like everything was normal, all the while hiding the truth. I spent most of the day stewing in my own anger and heartbreak. My brother tried to talk to me, but I wasn't ready to open up yet. I needed time to sort through my thoughts. By the afternoon, I decided I couldn't let this go without saying something. I started by texting Maddie. I kept it short. "Maddie, I love you, but what you've done has hurt me deeply. I need space to figure things out." She replied almost instantly, "I'm so sorry, Dad. I'll never forgive myself for this. I love you so much." I didn't respond. Then I texted Alice. "And Alice, this isn't a mistake. This is a betrayal from my entire family. Please don't contact me until I'm ready to talk." She didn't reply, but I know she must have shown Jane because Jane started texting me again shortly after. "Don't take this out on the girls. They were just trying to protect me. They didn't mean to hurt you." I ignored her. I wasn't interested in excuses. Later that evening, I finally told my brother the full story. I showed him the messages, the photo, everything. He was furious on my behalf. "You need to cut them all off," he said, "when they clearly don't respect you. Why should you keep them in your life?" His words hit me hard because deep down I knew he was right. But cutting off my daughters, that was a step I wasn't sure I could take. That night, I started thinking about the next steps. I knew my marriage to Jane was over. There was no coming back from this. I didn't even want to try. But what about Alice and Maddie? Could I ever trust them again? Could I ever look at them the same way, knowing what they did? I decided I needed time to think, time to process, time to figure out how to move forward. But one thing was certain, my life as I knew it was over. The fallout didn't just hit like a bomb, it lingered, a slow, suffocating burn. By the time I got back to my brother's place that evening, I wasn't angry anymore. I was numb. Every emotion I had felt earlier, the rage, the disbelief, the heartbreak, had given way to a dull, crushing weight in my chest. It was like the life I had built, The one I thought was rock solid was crumbling, and all I could do was watch. The first thing I noticed when I turned on my phone was the silence. For all the notifications and missed calls earlier in the day, now there was nothing new. No more frantic texts from Maddie, no follow-ups from Alice, no voice messages from Jane. It was like they realized I wasn't going to respond and gave up. Or maybe they were regrouping. Who knows? Either way, the quiet was unsettling. The silence gave me time to think, and that wasn't a good thing. When the anger was gone, all that was left was the hurt, the questions that kept swirling in my head like a tornado. How long had this been going on? How many times had Jane lied to my face? Did Alice and Maddie ever feel guilty about what they were doing? Or was this all just normal for them, betraying their father to protect their mother? I sat down with my brother that night and laid it all out for him. He didn't say much while I was talking, just listened. I told him about finding the texts on Jane's phone, the lies from Alice and Maddie, the picture I took of Jane with her boss at the restaurant, and the family group chat bomb I dropped before disappearing. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and shook his head. "That's messed up," he said. "I don't even know where to start. I mean, I always thought Jane was a little, too polished, but I didn't think she'd do something like this. And the girls? Man, I don't know, that's just low." It was a relief to hear someone else say it out loud, to confirm that I wasn't overreacting or losing my mind. But it didn't make it any easier. My brother was furious on my behalf, which helped in the moment, but the truth was, I didn't need his anger. I had plenty of my own. What I needed was clarity, a way forward. I had none. The next morning, I decided to stop wallowing and start doing something. The first step was getting my finances in order. I couldn't think about the emotional side of things if I didn't protect myself first. I spent most of the day canceling joint accounts, moving money into a separate account Jane couldn't touch, and locking down anything that might be at risk during the divorce. I wasn't going to let her use my grief as an opportunity to blindside me. But it wasn't just about Jane. As I went through my accounts, I couldn't stop thinking about all the money I had spent, or was planning to spend on Alice's wedding. Tens of thousands of dollars, gone, all for a daughter who had looked me in the eye and lied, who had helped her mother betray me. The thought made me sick. I made a mental note to talk to my lawyer about it. Maybe I couldn't get that money back, but I sure as hell wasn't going to pay another cent. By the afternoon, I was ready to take the next step. I called a lawyer, well, several lawyers actually. My brother had recommended I meet with a few before choosing one, so I spent the rest of the day sitting in offices, retelling the story to strangers who were trying very hard to act professional while clearly judging the situation. By the end of the day, I had picked someone. She was tough, smart, and most importantly, aggressive. I told her I wanted this to be as clean and quick as possible, but I also wanted to make sure Jane didn't walk away with anything she didn't deserve. The lawyer reassured me, saying she'd handled plenty of cases like this before. That didn't make me feel any better, but at least I felt like I was in good hands. That night, as I sat alone in my brother's guest room, I started to think about what I wanted to say to Jane. I hadn't confronted her yet. I'd been avoiding it, partly because I didn't trust myself to stay calm, and partly because I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of explaining herself. What could she possibly say that would make any of this okay? But I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. At some point, I'd have to face her, and when I did, I wanted to be ready. I didn't want to get sucked into her excuses or her tears. I needed to stay focused, to remind myself why I was doing this. I wrote down everything I wanted to say, every question I wanted to ask, every point I wanted to make. I didn't know if I'd actually use it, but writing it down helped. It made me feel like I had some control, like I wasn't just a victim in all of this. The hardest part, though, was thinking about Alice and Maddie. I hadn't spoken to them since sending those texts, and I didn't know if I could. How do you talk to your daughters after finding out they've been lying to you for months? How do you even begin to rebuild that trust? I wanted to believe that Maddie's apologies were sincere, that she was truly sorry for what she'd done, but how could I trust that? How could I trust anything she said after what I discovered? And Alice, her cold, dismissive response had shattered me. I always knew she was closer to Jane, but I never thought she'd side with her mother in something like this. It felt like she'd made her choice, and it wasn't me. That night, I made another decision. I wasn't going to reach out to them. If they wanted to fix this, they'd have to come to me. I wasn't going to chase after them, begging for their forgiveness or their explanations. They made their choices, and now they'd have to live with the consequences. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again, I felt a strange sense of calm. For the first time since discovering the affair, I didn't feel completely lost. I had a plan. It wasn't much, and it wouldn't fix everything, but it was a start. I was done being the victim. From now on, I was going to take control. After 2 days of sitting in my brother's guest room, dodging calls and sorting through my emotions, I decided it was time to face Jane. Avoiding her wasn't going to change anything, and I had things I needed to say, things she needed to hear. I texted her late that night when we need to talk tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning at the house. She responded almost immediately, "I'll be there. Please, just let me explain." Explain what? Was there anything to explain? I wasn't interested in excuses or half-hearted justifications, but I didn't reply. I figured I'd save it for when we were face to face. The next morning, I got up early and drove to our house. As soon as I walked through the door, I was hit with a wave of nostalgia and bitterness. This was our home, the place where we built a life, raised our kids, celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. Now it felt hollow, like everything good that had happened here was tainted. Jane showed up right on time. She walked in nervously, her eyes red and puffy, like she'd been crying for days. She was holding her phone in one hand, like it was a shield, and I noticed she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. That detail stung more than it should have. "Thanks for agreeing to meet," she said softly, standing just inside the door, like she was afraid to come any closer. "Don't thank me," I said. My voice came out colder than I expected. "I'm not here to make things easier for you." That set the tone for the conversation. We sat down at the dining room table, the same table where we'd shared countless family dinners. She started talking right away, saying all the things I expected her to say. It wasn't serious. It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake. She kept repeating herself, cycling through the same tired lines, like if she said them enough, they'd start to sound believable. "Stop," I said, finally cutting her off. "I don't want to hear excuses. I want answers." She looked at me, confused. "What do you mean?" "How long?" I asked. She hesitated. "A few months." "Can try again." Her face crumpled, and she whispered, "Almost a year." I clenched my fist under the table, trying to keep my anger in check. A year, an entire year of lies. How many times had she smiled at me, kissed me, told me she loved me, all while sneaking around behind my back? "And the girls?" I asked. "How long have they known?" Jane winced, her eyes darting away. "It's not the whole time. I told them a couple of months ago. I didn't mean to drag them into it." "But you did," I interrupted. "So you made them part of your lies. Do you have any idea what that's done to me?" She started crying, full-on sobbing. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you, but I was so unhappy and—" "Unhappy?" I snapped, my voice echoed in the empty house. "Once you were unhappy, so you decided to blow up our family. You were unhappy, so you cheated on me and dragged our daughters into your mess. Do you have any idea what you've done, Jane?" She didn't answer. She just sat there, crying into her hands, and for the first time, I didn't feel sorry for her. "Oh, you've ruined everything," I said quietly. "Oh, not just our marriage, but my relationship with Alice and Maddie. How am I supposed to trust them after this? How am I supposed to look at them and not see this betrayal?" "I didn't want them to lie to you," she whispered. "I didn't want any of this." "Then why did you do it?" I asked. "Why didn't you come to me if you were so unhappy? Why didn't you try to fix things instead of sneaking around behind my back?" She didn't have an answer, or maybe she did, but it didn't matter. Whatever she said wouldn't change what she'd done. After a long silence, I stood up. "Ain't filing for divorce," I said.
"And you'll hear from my lawyer soon."
"Please don't do this," she begged, standing up too. "And we can work through this. We can fix it." "There's nothing to fix," I said. "But you made your choice, and now I'm making mine." Before I walked out, I turned to her one last time. "And by the way, don't expect me to pay for Alice's wedding anymore. She can ask her boss to foot the bill since you're both so good at keeping secrets." Her face crumpled again, but I didn't stick around to see her reaction. On my way out of the house, I paused in the hallway, staring at the family photos hanging on the wall. There we were, me, Jane, Alice, and Maddie, smiling like the perfect family. I used to love those photos. Now they felt like a cruel joke. I grabbed the nearest one, a picture of us at Alice's high school graduation, and smashed it against the wall. The glass shattered, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of satisfaction. But it didn't last. As I walked to my car, I realized something. This was just the beginning. The confrontation with Jane was over, but the real battle was only starting. I still had to deal with Alice and Maddie. I still had to figure out how to move forward. And I still had to face the fact that the life I thought I had, the life I'd spent nearly 30 years building, was gone. The confrontation with Jane was just the first step. It cleared the air, sure, but it didn't make things easier. If anything, it made the betrayal feel heavier, more real. The anger I felt toward Jane was sharp but focused. I knew what she'd done and why I was walking away. The situation with Alice and Maddie was murkier. They were my daughters, my flesh and blood, but they had chosen her. The day after I told Jane I was filing for a divorce, I decided to meet with Alice and Maddie separately. I couldn't ignore them forever, and I wasn't ready to cut them off completely without at least hearing their side, but I also knew this wasn't going to be a casual chat. The trust between us was shattered, and I needed to know if there was anything left to salvage. I started with Maddie. She had always been the more emotional one, and her texts over the past few days had been borderline frantic. I asked her to meet me at a park near my brother's house. When she arrived, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she kept fidgeting with her hands. As soon as we sat down on a bench, she started crying. "Dad, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice cracking. "And I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you." "Then why did you lie to me?" I asked, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Why did you cover for your mother? Did you think I wouldn't find out?" She shook her head, wiping her eyes. "It wasn't like that. She told me about it a couple of months ago. I was mad at her, but she begged me not to say anything. She said she'd end it soon, that it was just a phase. I didn't know what to do." I stared at her, trying to process her words. "So you decided to protect her instead of telling me the truth?" "So I thought she was going to stop," Maddie said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to blow up the family if there was a chance she'd fix things. I didn't know it would get this far." "That's not good enough, Maddie," I said. "You don't get to excuse what you did by saying you didn't know. You knew she was cheating. You knew she was lying to me, and you went along with it. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel?" She broke down again, covering her face with her hands. I felt a pang of guilt watching her cry, but I couldn't let it soften me. This wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the damage they'd all done to my trust. "And not saying this to punish you," I said finally, "but I need you to understand how deeply this has hurt me. Right now, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you the way I used to." Maddie nodded, her shoulders shaking. "I'll do anything to fix this, Dad. Anything. Just tell me what to do." I didn't have an answer for her. I told her I needed time and left. My meeting with Alice was a completely different story. I asked her to meet me at a coffee shop, thinking it would be better to talk in a neutral space. She showed up 10 minutes late, looking polished and composed, as if nothing had happened. That alone rubbed me the wrong way. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as she sat down. I didn't waste any time. "Alice, why didn't you tell me about your mother's affair?" She sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Oh, Dad, I didn't want to get involved. It's between you and Mom. I thought it was better to stay out of it." "Stay out of it?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You didn't stay out of it, Alice. You lied to me. You covered for her. That's not staying out of it. That's choosing a side." "So wasn't choosing sides," she said defensively. "So I was trying to keep the peace. I didn't want to make things worse." "Worse for who?" I asked. "For me, or for your mother?" She didn't answer, which told me everything I needed to know. "Oh, Alice, you're an adult," I said, "and you're getting married soon. If your fiancé did to you what your mother did to me, would you want everyone around you to lie and protect him, or would you want someone to stand up and tell you the truth?" "That's different," she said, looking annoyed. "A mom made a mistake. It doesn't mean you have to throw everything away." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. "One mistake? Is that what you think this is?" "It's a mistake," she said firmly. "People make mistakes, Dad. You don't have to burn everything to the ground because of one bad choice." "Oh, and one bad choice?" I repeated, shaking my head. "Do you even hear yourself? This wasn't a bad choice. It was a betrayal. By your mother, by you, by Maddie. And you're sitting here acting like I'm overreacting." "I'm not saying that," she said quickly. "I just think you're being too harsh. You're hurt, I get that, but you'll regret cutting us out later. We're your family." "And family doesn't lie to each other," I said. "Family doesn't cover for someone who's tearing everything apart. You and Maddie didn't just lie to me. You broke my trust, and right now I don't see how I can move past that." She crossed her arms, looking frustrated. "So what? You're just going to disown us? Pretend we don't exist?" "Son, I don't know," I admitted. "But I can't pretend like nothing happened. I can't pretend like you didn't betray me." We sat in silence for a few minutes before I finally stood up. "I've said what I needed to say," I told her. "And the rest is up to you." She didn't try to stop me as I walked out. That night, I sat alone in my brother's guest room, thinking about both conversations. Maddie seemed genuinely remorseful, but I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive her. Alice, on the other hand, was a different story. Her refusal to acknowledge the seriousness of what she'd done made it clear that she didn't think she was in the wrong. For the first time, I seriously considered cutting them both out of my life. It wasn't a decision I wanted to make, but the thought of trying to rebuild a relationship with people who had betrayed me so deeply felt impossible. That night, I finalized my decision. I called my lawyer the next morning and told her to revise my will. Alice and Maddie were to be removed as beneficiaries. Everything, my savings, my retirement fund, the house, would go to my sister and her kids. They'd always been there for me, and I knew they wouldn't betray me like my own daughters had. When I told my brother, he didn't even try to talk me out of it. "You're doing the right thing," he said. And they made their choices. Now they can live with the consequences. The fallout was immediate. Maddie called me the next day, crying hysterically. "Don't, Dad, please don't do this," she said. "I know I messed up, but I love you. I don't care about the money. I just don't want to lose you." Her words hit me harder than I expected, but I stood my ground. "Maddie, I'll always love you," I said. But love doesn't mean I can forget what you did. I need time. Maybe someday we can rebuild our relationship. But right now, I can't have you in my life." She kept crying, but eventually, she hung up. Alice, predictably, took a different approach. She sent me a long email, accusing me of being petty and vindictive. She said I was punishing her for trying to keep the peace, and that I was ruining her wedding over something that had nothing to do with her. I didn't respond. There was no point. Jane tried to intervene too. She sent me an email, her tone polished and carefully constructed. She begged me not to cut the girls out of my will, claiming it wasn't fair to punish them for mistakes she had made. She even had the audacity to suggest that removing them would irreparably damage the family. I didn't reply to her either. As the days went on, I started to feel lighter. The anger was still there, but the weight of the betrayal didn't feel as suffocating anymore. Cutting ties wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I needed to protect myself, not just financially, but emotionally. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. It's been a month now since I cut them out of my will. I haven't spoken to Alice or Maddie since. I've heard from mutual friends that Alice is scrambling to find the money to cover the wedding expenses I had been paying for. I don't feel sorry for her. She made her choice when she chose to side with her mother. Maddie, I still think about. Part of me hopes that someday we can reconcile, but only if she truly understands the depth of her betrayal. Until then, I'm focusing on myself. Jane? She's nothing to me now. I don't care what she does or who she does it with. The divorce is moving forward, and my lawyer assures me that she won't get much. That's enough for me. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice, cutting them all out of my life. But then I remind myself of one simple truth. They made their choices, and now I'm making mine. I'm finally free.